I'm Brian Freise alongside Laura Duncan, and you're listening to the Triggered and True podcast. This is a podcast that's all about you, discovering you, going back for you, being with you. You're more than the pain you've experienced, the behaviors you're expressing, and the thoughts that run through your head. Together, we will find your true self, which has always been with you. It's just been covered up. Tune in as we show you how to feel your pain, get comfort, and go play as you return to you. It's time to transform from triggered to true. Hello and welcome everyone to this episode of Triggered and True. I think I have this subconscious thing going because this is kind of always starts our podcast with Laura and I off with a laugh, because lately I've been introducing it. Hello and welcome to the Compassion Method. So, but the title of the podcast is Triggered and True, and we talk about the Compassion Method.
Yes.
So, and the Compassion Method part we're going to talk about today is really a continuation of our last episode, where we talked about objections that people have to this process that Laura has developed called the Compassion Method. And today we're going to be focusing specifically on a concern that's sometimes raised about, is this really biblical? And something that a lot of Christians, or some Christians, have voiced concerns about. We're going to talk about some of those things and some of those objections or questions that have been raised. But before we do that, Laura, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit.
Uh-oh. No, just joking.
Well, I was wondering, before we get into these other things, if you could describe a little bit about your personal faith and how it has impacted the development of the Compassion Method.
You know, I didn't really know exactly what I was going to share about this, because right before we started, Brian did give me a little disclaimer, but I
gave her a couple minutes.
Yeah, he gives me like a minute or two, and then the rest we just wing it.
But a lot of times I email it to her ahead of time, but this
yes,
time I thought I'd catch her a little bit more off guard.
Yeah, but I'm actually going to share something kind of cool about my faith that I just remembered. So when I was a kid, I was raised in a Christian home, and I always knew that God was meant to be a felt experience. I don't know how I knew, I just knew. And I always knew I didn't have that felt experience. And I knew that my mom did. And I felt like my dad did a little bit, but my mom was like very obviously felt experience with God. So I would literally go and lay on her side of the bed and lay there and say, God, like, show me who you are. Like you've shown my mom who you are. You know, like I want to know you. I want to feel you. I want it to be real. And a lot of times nothing would happen, you know, and I would feel a little sad or discouraged. And I go up, and I mean, I was like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. And I knew it was supposed to be felt experience, but even though I couldn't feel it, I couldn't feel God, I still obeyed God. I still read the Bible. We still went to Sunday school. I still wanted to serve him, but I didn't have that feeling. And when I was 18, took quite a while. When I was 18, I kind of, at 16 to 18 were kind of my rough years, because I got disillusioned because I didn't feel God. He didn't feel real to me. It made it feel very empty, because I was trying to, you know, have a relationship, and it didn't feel like we had a relationship. So I'm like, you know what? I've been doing this for my whole entire life. Nothing's changed. I still don't feel close. I still don't feel a relationship. I'm just going through the religion, the emotions, with a heart that desired God, but didn't actually feel like I knew God. And at 18, I experienced God. And when I experienced him, and he was a felt experience. And the reason why I'm emphasizing my faith as a felt experience is because the Compassion Method lines up with that too. We are having, as we find, when we recognize the felt experience of our pain, we recognize the felt experience of love. And when we recognize the felt experience of God, we're able to have a relationship and connection with him. And instinctively, I always knew that was the goal. And at 18, I hadn't been living for God, hadn't been living, you know, the life that I, knew I was supposed to be living. I just had gotten disillusioned. And I had actually demonic dreams where I was being like, couldn't breathe, was being pressed down. I would wake up and I would feel like stuff around my neck. I would feel just a lot of darkness. And I woke up from one of these dreams and I went out to the living room and my brother was there and he was like, what's going on? And I just said, I had a really bad dream. And he had just come back to God himself. So he just said, well, if you ask God, he'll come and he'll help you. He'll save you from those dreams. And all I said was, okay, God. And I said it in my head. My brother didn't even hear it. I said it in my head. I said, okay, God, if you're real, protect me and save me from these dreams. And instantly I felt just kind of heat, warmth go through my whole body. And I knew that he was that he was real, that he was going to protect me, and that we were going to have a relationship. And I felt it ever since. I don't always feel like warmth or, as big of a moment as that one was for me, but it's like my mind was open. My heart was opened. I knew what it felt like to experience God. And even in times where, we go through seasons where you don't hear God or you don't feel like close to him or you don't feel like you can experience him, that moment was the moment I've been looking for my whole life. And I've always had that moment up until today. So even when my husband was dying, even when you're praying and not hearing, like you're not getting healing, you're not, it doesn't feel like God's close because you're in that valley of the shadow of death. I always knew that God was with me. And so today, as I've come into the compassion method, or in the years that I've been connected to the compassion method, I recognized that root as a little girl, as a 5-year-old little girl that knew that we were supposed to have a felt experience with God, was what we were meant to have for our hearts on this earth with humans as well. And so they actually go so hand in hand, because I've been able to not only feel the felt experience with God, but as I've received my own gifts and I've received my own comfort, compassion, it actually has lined up with that same belief that I've had my whole entire life. And just right now, I'm actually seeing the connection, how God always wanted me to feel this, both for my heart and my spirit. I felt it for my spirit at 18. And after Jeff died and I went through this, I felt it for my heart when I received the process of the compassion method. But they were always meant to go together.
Yeah. No, that is a beautiful imagery.
Yeah, it was powerful and so real. And maybe that's why this is so important to me too. Yeah.
And it was laying the groundwork for your future work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that helps me a lot better understand too, the feeling part. Yeah. I think my history with my faith has been more, logical, obviously, because that's where my brain's at.
I did that too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And less of that felt experience. And we need both.
We do.
We need both.
And when you say, and I do kind of know this from being part of your journey, I remember you'd share experiences, dreams you had, God dreams you had, not demonic dreams, but God dreams you had that was felt experience, that you were able to feel God in that dream, and it feels like he became so much closer to you in that felt experience way.
Yeah, definitely. When I have those moments of doubt, those dreams and those ways that I've encountered him through dreams has been very, very impactful.
Yeah. And I'd say the same for myself too. What brought me to God was dark dreams, but but God has used dreams in my life as well since then.
Yeah. That's powerful. Well, from there, with some of that background, and so people that now have a better understanding of, where you're coming from. But I guess one other question I would have is that you also, though, as you were developing the compassion method, you recognized that you had, you've talked about medicated with your faith.
Yeah. So kind of what that would look like paired with what I just shared is the fact that once I connected with God, I just wanted to be only God all the time. Like if someone came and shared a problem, I'd just be like, let's pray. And I love that. There's nothing wrong with that. I love my faith. I love how much I loved God and how much I believed that he could help in any situation at any time with anyone. And I love that. And I still have that. But what I realized is because I've been hurt by humans and I hadn't reconciled some of my lack and some of my pain with humans, I grabbed a hold of God once I had that experience, and God was everything. Humans hurt you. God is everything. But even though I'd had the felt experience with God, there'd be times where I didn't feel protected by God, or I didn't feel like he really saw me in certain things. So I would feel like, yes, I know he loves me, but I didn't always feel the tangibility in specific ways that my heart needed. And I definitely did not want to go to humans, because to me, humans hurt you and God heals you. So one of the main things God told me in the very beginning, he says, you're medicating with me. And I was so offended because I love God so much. And I had taken the first 18 years of my life where I read the Bible all the time. I went to church all the time. I did all the right things. I was really, really good. And I had taken that back on with the felt experience. And I was living so much more in doing good. I kind of would say it was like, if you do Mario Brothers, you want to get all the coins, like I was getting all the coins in life. And then he's like, you're medicating with yourself. And I was so offended by it. I was like, I have gone through so much and I always believe, I still have faith. I do the right thing. I don't sin. I don't do this, which everyone's sinning sometimes, but I just had made my life as perfect as I
You might just be a little less than the average.
Yeah. But I made it as perfect as I possibly could. And then he's like, you're missing it. And I was just like, I was devastated. But finally I listened to him and he said, you medicate with me because you don't want to feel your pain. And you won't allow others. He designed others to come and be with you. And you will not allow others to come and be with you because you only want me to make you feel better without facing your pain. And most importantly, when you medicate with me, you don't allow me to be with you in your pain, which ultimately I was refusing compassion, because compassion is to be with in our pain. But I wouldn't allow God to be with me in my pain because I was doing so good, showing him how much I loved him, how much I wanted to serve him, how I wanted to do all the right things. But I wasn't allowing him in to the pain, to the dark places, to the places that I was always trying to protect with doing the right thing. And neurologically, when you worship, it actually gives you endorphins. It makes you feel better. So I'd have this ball of pain come up in my heart. And instead of looking at it and facing it, inviting God into it, I would just worship and the pain would go away. I'm doing air quotes. You can't see it. But the pain would be relieved, but it would come back up again and again and again and again. Yeah. Until I actually faced it with him and others.
On a call that I was on with you last night, you shared something that I hadn't heard you share before that was really, really powerful that relates just to this. And it's from John 11. And basically you shared an example of how Jesus didn't even go straight to God.
No.
He actually took the time to feel.
Yeah.
So the example you shared was from John 11 at Lazarus's death. So Lazarus was a good friend of Jesus, and he stayed away for a period of time, which kind of had everybody scratching their head. But then when he came, he took the time, like he knew what was going to happen. He's God. He knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. But instead of just going right to that, he actually took the time to be with the family and the loved ones of Lazarus, and not just to be with them, but to feel what they were feeling.
Weep with them.
To weep with them. And here's what you said last night. I wrote it down. It was so good. You said, they lived the reality of him dying, so he grieved with them. And I got to thinking, is not only did the family and friends, Jesus was one of the friends.
Yeah.
He lived the reality.
He did.
of Lazarus dying.
I didn't even think about that. Yes.
That caused him pain.
Wow. It wasn't just even grieving with them. He was grieving himself because he felt the pain of his death, even though he was going to raise him from the dead.
But he still took the time to feel.
It had to be
He didn't
important.
just go, hey, come out.
Yep.
He didn't just go do that.
Let's just put on a worship song now, raise him from the dead, and we're done. Get up, everybody. We're fine. He came in
pat him on the back. Forget this ever happened.
His pain too. I love that.
Yeah, that's so good. And then you said, how often do we bypass feelings just to fix it?
Yeah.
How often do we bypass feelings because we just want to fix it? Our kids' problem. How often do we just bypass sitting with them in the problem and feeling the weight of it and just go fix it? Because some of the problems we can fix real easily.
Yep, exactly.
But
we're not with them in it.
We're not with them in it.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah. So
I said it, but I'm also, that's so good.
No, it is. I think that, you could sit there and think on that one for a long time.
Yeah, and I just feel so much love and so much felt experience in that scripture, which I believe that's what scripture is meant to be. It's the living word of God.
Well, and at first it seems so kind of illogical because you're like, oh, just go raise him from the dead already, Yeah. But he's modeling like, this is what it takes. Like, even if I raise him from the dead, that doesn't take the pain away that you felt.
Exactly.
You felt pain. And in order to heal that pain, I can't just fix it by raising from the dead. We all have to sit here and feel it.
Yep.
And we have to be with each other in it. And that compassion, that substance, that weight is ultimately the healing, not the raising him from the dead.
Yeah. It's interesting. I just thought of when Jeff passed away, I spent, 2 years ultimately developing the compassion method without even realizing that's what I was doing. But I remember I didn't have unbelief. I still believed God could heal, even though Jeff wasn't healed. But I did not feel like I wanted to do healing. Even though I believed, I didn't want to do it. And I didn't pray for anyone for those first 1.5 to 2 years because I think we were grieving. And even though I still believed, I wasn't meant to just go back out and start doing all the things. I was meant to grieve and feel and ultimately develop the compassion method and then go out and pray and then go out and do the things that I had done before. So I never even connected those dots, but I think that's what I was doing at that time.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Well, so that gives everybody a really good backdrop that
there we go.
Laura her faith has had a tremendous impact on the formation of the compassion method.
Definitely. That's how it all started.
Absolutely.
And then brain science, but also I didn't even, like God's telling me things, I'm studying, I'm bringing it all together, but it was all connected to my faith.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that comes up sometime, and this came up pretty strong when so we've talked on the podcast a few times that I've written a book. It's called Above All Else. Hopefully it'll come out later this year at some point.
I'm so excited. Everyone, we're really excited.
We're really excited. Absolutely. It's
going to be so good.
I'm excited too. And one of the there's been a lot of learning of my own through this process, but one of the coolest experiences was having a friend of mine who went on in life and got a degree in theology, having him do a theology review of what I wrote. And one of the things that I really recognized is that I told him, I said, hey, I want this book to be written towards a Christian audience, and I want it to be a discipleship tool. I want them to see how TCM, the compassion method, connects to discipleship, how it can help a person grow closer to God. And I recognized by some of his reviews and some of the ways that I wrote that I too recognized when I was working with you, Laura, how much I medicated with God and I wasn't connecting. And I defined medicating with God as going to God in a way to avoid feeling what my heart was doing, avoid feeling the anxiousness, avoid feeling the turmoil that was inside of me. And the exact opposite of what Jesus modeled at the tomb of Lazarus. Like, he could have easily not took the time to feel that, but he did, and I've recognized that I was be more like, hey, God, fix this problem versus be with me. I'm going to feel this and let's work through it and all the other stuff. So I realized I was doing similar to what you were doing. And I some of my writing was bent that way. Like there was a little bit of an edge, like, I'm going to go so against medicating with God that maybe I'm going too far another direction of being too independent, So he helped me see that.
That's
and
good.
There was multiple other things he helped me see. And one of them was a comment that you made to me early on that I wrote about in the book. And we've talked about it on the podcast before. And I know you've shared it with others, but you said to me, Brian, you're not broken. You don't need to be fixed. You're just covered up. So that in a vacuum, as my friend was doing the theology review, it was like, but what about, where's Jesus in this equation? Because the Bible's pretty clear, because apart from Christ, it's not that we're broken or covered up. The Bible's pretty clear that apart from Christ, we're dead. We're spiritually dead. So when I reframed it and rewrote with a little bit more clarification, and Laura, you can correct me, if I'm wrong, but I'm like, the way I perceived that from you at the time is that you already knew I was a Christian and you saw that I was stuck and that I was not living any of the freedom or very little of the freedom that the Bible promised. And there was this conflict inside of me, like, he knows all the truth. He's read this all. He's confessed this all, but yet the application of it and living the reality of it isn't happening.
You're still living as perceiving yourself as broken, even though you have received Jesus's sacrifice and redemption. And he's already finished the work, but you're not living as if he's finished the work.
Right. So that was the clarification that I needed to make a little bit more, in the book, because you're obviously not teaching that the compassion method is something you can do to fix all of your problems outside of Jesus.
Yeah.
That's not your belief. Not. That's not what you're teaching.
No.
Yeah.
But one thing I will say.
Did I interpret that right?
Yes, you did. No, you interpreted it very well. And I work primarily with Christians that are medicating. Another word for it sometimes is spiritual bypassing, where you're bypassing your emotions with spirituality instead of feeling them. So yes, I'm working with Christians that are, I'd say 90%, like 85% of people I work with are already Christians, or some of the people that weren't become, because I actually believe because Jesus is compassion, people find Jesus in the compassion method, which is really cool. I really love how he shows up in this for people that haven't yet met him. But one thing I will say is a lot of times when people get saved, so like, you're going along in life, at some point you have that moment where you give your life to God, you confess, he comes into your life and you're born again. I feel like people always are like that's your start and stop point. Like I was nothing until I was 18. And then when I fully gave my life to God at 18, then I began my life. And everything before it is like worthless, And now that Jesus came into my life, I'm a new creation. And now we begin at 18. But one thing and that's what I thought for years and years. But one thing I do believe is that when Jesus died for us, when we receive it, he goes all the way back and all the way forward with his redemption. So he's redeeming our child self. Because some people might say, well, before you accepted Jesus at 18, you were dead and you were not redeemable. But when you did, you became a new creation. I believe that Jesus restores us completely. But just as much as we don't always receive what he's given to us through his blood, through his death, I think sometimes we don't receive it for our whole life, not just that moment of accepting Jesus. So that might be controversial. That might be hard for people to hear.
Oh man, there's like two major zingers in this thing where we're gonna have to sit here and think like, Should we just hit the pause button and think about this for a little while?
We're going to think about it. We'll be right back. I'm just joking, but it's true. Like, and that's part, I guess, what I would emphasize. And I actually believe it's not against the miracle of what Jesus did for us. It's actually like the fulfillment. He didn't just die for me at 18. He died for me, for my 2-year-old self, my 5-year-old self, my 7-year-old self, all the way through.
Well, this connects to me, you know, how the Bible says before the foundations, which always kind of blows my mind. Before time existed, Jesus died.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he did.
I rewatched Interstellar the other night, and I'm just like, that movie's just like
into that. Yeah, but it's
true, this like time thing is like so
all the way back to from our lives and all lives. He went all the way back. It's like I see it like the blood of Jesus like drops into our timeline at whenever we accepted Jesus, but when it drops, it goes all the way back to the foundations of the earth and all the way into eternity.
Nice. That's pretty. I love that picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of something I wrote about too was the, and it's not like once we receive Christ, we're just automatically that new creation, like we're just automatically perfected.
Yeah.
So I think like that true self. So I look at, so we've had questions from the podcast too of like, how does the true self relate to what the Bible talks about with the new self? Well, for me, they're the same.
Yes. That's how I see it.
And I always tell people too, is like, it's not that a non-believer can't experience or learn aspects of their true self, because we're all image bearers of God. Every human being is made in the image of God.
Exactly.
So a non-believer can see parts of it.
Yeah.
But the new work, the new life only comes through. Do you have
a Bible handy?
Union. Yeah.
Can you look up? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just got excited.
Yeah, that's no problem.
I don't have it up, and you know me, it'll take forever. Colossians 1:20.
Yeah.
Do you have like the Message or the Passion, or it's okay if it's any?
I have every one of them. So
okay. I really like
I've got the
Passion
Message
version or the Message version, but Passion is usually the one that I choose. But whatever one's fine. It says it in every one. I just kind of like the wording in the Passion.
Yeah, I'll pull it up.
Sorry, I totally cut you off. I got excited and I just threw it out there.
That is okay. That is okay. I am close.
Colossians 1:20.
All right. So Colossians 1:20 says, and I'm in the Passion, and by the blood of his cross, everything in heaven and earth is brought back to himself, back to its original intent, restored to innocence again.
Yeah.
And by the blood of his cross, everything in heaven and earth is brought back to himself, back to its original intent, restored to innocence again.
Yeah. I love that. That's where I see the blood of Jesus in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So yeah, I think that helps a lot, and I think answers some of those concerns that people might have to some degree anyway. But one other kind of related comment people have made, I think you've heard this more than I have, because I don't fully even know what this is. I was reading about it before the podcast, but humanism.
Yeah.
So I had to look up what humanism really even is. But some people have said, this sounds like humanism or some new age thing. So talk a little bit about humanism.
I think that kind of connects with what we just said of saying that we don't need Jesus, that we as humans are as powerful or more powerful. Think of the Tower of Babel, that we are as powerful or more powerful than God, and we don't need him to heal. We don't need him to be restored. to innocence, that we don't need, that we can do this on our own. But how I look at it is it's connected to with what we just talked about, the redemptive work of Jesus, but also it's connected to the Great Commission, where he's saying, go and do greater things than I did. So he has actually empowered us not to be humanistic where we don't need God, but he's empowered us to be able to go out and do the things that he did from ourself, not apart from God. With him, we get to go and do these things. So when people say, like, also another thing, I think there was another objection of some people saying that like it's very selfish. Like if you really love God, you're going to put him first, and you probably don't even really matter that much. You know what I mean? Like, love God, love others, and maybe if you got a little bit left, love yourself. That's kind of how I lived before, and also how often Christians will kind of, put their priorities. But just as much as it's not humanism that we can do it on our own, it's also not selfish to take care of ourselves. If you think about it, Jesus would go out into the desert and commune with God and reconnect and be restored to himself, because he was living human. Even though he didn't sin in his humanity, he still lived human. He still had all the emotions that we feel. So he would get tired. He would get overwhelmed. He would get frustrated. He would feel everything we felt. And he would be restored by that relationship and that connection, but he would also be taking care of himself in those moments. Remember how the disciples got mad at him and said, why are you going off by yourself? There's hungry people here. Right. Yes, it was about God, but it was about him taking care of himself.
I mean, if you think if anybody would have a God complex,
Yeah, exactly. But he was taking care of himself. That was self-care. Yeah. That was self-love.
Yeah, he had self-imposed limitations by becoming a human.
He did. And he learned how to take care of himself in that. And so to me, we get so afraid of being humanistic that we are as powerful or more powerful than God and we can do this on our own. Or we're selfish because we're taking care of ourselves and loving ourselves, when it's actually honoring to God to know who we are and know what he gave us to go and do it with ourselves, with him. It never says in the Bible not to love yourself. In fact, it says love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah, and I think that the humanism part is probably saying that, that love originates from humanity. Mm-hmm. Well, no, we love because he first loved us.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the source.
Yeah.
Of all the love in the universe, and we have to tap into that flow.
And one really cool thing that God told me about loving myself, because I was definitely in the camp of love God, love people, and maybe love yourself, but probably not. He told me, he said, how you're going to get to heaven and worship me? And I said, yeah, you're going to get to heaven and be reconnected with your loved ones. Yeah. So God, people. And I'm like, yeah, this is great. Yep. I can't wait to be there. And then he said, but guess what? Guess who else is going to be in heaven? You. And he said, if I loved you the way you love yourself, I never would have died for you, because I wouldn't want to be with you for all of eternity the way you see yourself. So he said, I want you to learn to love yourself so you can see who I died for, and recognize that you're going to be with yourself for all of eternity, just as much as you're going to be with God for all of eternity. Self will be in heaven. Know yourself. We're not going to be these mystical creatures in heaven. We're going to be us, without sin, with all the promises that heaven invites us into, but we're going to be us. We're still going to have preferences. We're still going to have desires. We're still going to have us there. So let's get to know ourselves, because we're going to spend all of eternity, not just with God, not just with others, with ourselves.
So in that viewpoint, getting to know yourself and learning to love yourself is honoring.
Yes,
to God.
So honoring. And I really don't know how you can really love God if you don't love yourself. I don't know. The more I've learned to love myself, the more I love God. I thought I loved God before, but I was a shell loving God. Now I'm full loving God.
Well, it's almost, the one way is a little bit more robotic.
Yes.
Like if you're not.
Less of me, more of him. I will be nothing. Then why did he die? He didn't die
for nothing.
To create nothing, emptiness, so that we would love him above everything else and we would be nothing. He died so that we could be the fullness of who he created us to be, so we could fully be in relationship and connection with him.
Like he made us amazing, and it gives him great joy to watch us be amazing.
Great joy.
To watch us be amazing.
Yes, just like we do with our kids. It would be the saddest thing if my kids said, Mom, I'm nothing. You're everything.
Yeah, it sounds really weird in that context.
Doesn't it? But that's kind of what we're telling God. I'm not talking about, not honoring God, not respecting God, not putting God first.
No, the whole point of it is that if, the Bible is pretty clear that humanity is the crown jewel of creation.
Yeah.
The crown jewel.
Yeah.
Okay. So not enjoying that jewel, not recognizing how precious that jewel is, not living to the extent that jewel was created to live, would not be honoring God at all. It's kind of like,
not at all.
You made this amazing thing and we just kick it to the curb because we think it's horrible and hideous because we have pain, because we have unmet need, and because we have pain and unmet need, and we still sin and we do stupid things because, people are difficult. So,
which brings us to the
next
one. Of the other ones, I don't know.
People are difficult.
Yeah,
it's a great segue into that. So, an objection people give that are, from Christians is that they want to go straight to God and bypass people.
Yeah, I see. Remember, you just
especially for the 10 gifts.
That's what I wanted to do. Yes. Yeah. So, such an objection because we've all been hurt by humans, and we believe that God is always going to be, he is always going to be there for us, but we believe he's perfect and humans aren't. So why even bother with humans? But it was God's design that humans would love us on this earth. So much so that Jesus stayed with his mom and dad, 0 to 12 years old too, because he needed, as a human, he needed a mom and a dad. If it wasn't important, he just would have come to this earth and been born and had people like caregive for him, maybe to make it from babyhood, on, feed him, all that kind of stuff. But it was more than that.
Right.
They showed him love and affection. They held him. They were with him. His humanity, his human side was able to feel those things. And so he designed it that a mom and a dad would show their children and their children and their children the tangible presence of God through them. So as much as humans have hurt us, it's God's design that humans, especially not triggered humans, but true self, new self humans, would love us. So when we bypass humans, we're bypassing God's design for us to have tangible love.
Yeah, and definitely the scriptures that really anchored this for me was obviously like really pondering how God brought Jesus into the earth. And like, we've talked about this too, but like he could have just came out of heaven as a 30-year-old man. He could have just walked right out of heaven, a 30-year-old man. He could have been raised by angels. He could have been raised by birds. I mean, he had the ravens feed, his prophets even. So it
could have happened so many ways.
So many ways.
He
so many
chose
ways.
This way.
People. But the other verse that really anchored this for me was 2 Corinthians 5:20. And I'll read that. So it says, we are ambassadors. I'm reading from the Passion again. We are ambassadors of the Anointed One who carry the message of Christ to the world as though God were tenderly pleading, with them directly through our lips. And I would say through our lips, through our touch, through our time, through our attention, through everything.
Yeah.
So we tenderly plead with you on Christ's behalf, turn back to God and be reconciled to him. So, you know, in the time that the Bible was written, kind of in the ancient world, an ambassador was a trusted representative of a king or a kingdom, sent to a foreign land not to promote their own ideas, but to speak and act with the full authority of the one who sent them.
Yeah.
So that's who we are.
Yeah. And that's what parents, caregivers are meant to be for their kids, ambassadors on behalf of an intangible God.
In a foreign land.
In a foreign land.
This kingdom is not our home.
We as adults and in heaven, we do not need moms and dads. But 0 to 12 years old, we needed humans.
Yes.
It's his design, and we cannot survive without it, literally.
Right. Right. You know, and we want to skip people for some very good reasons.
Every single person has been hurt or hurt others.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I actually, I was just going to read something I wrote from the book. I wrote, as mentioned, a core belief of the compassion method is that God knew in advance which of the gifts that we're talking about our parents could and couldn't give us. And he made provisions for the ones missing by sending them through other people. Maybe your
other
father
ambassadors. Yeah.
Other ambassadors. Absolutely. Maybe your father couldn't offer the gift of being seen and delighted in, but an 8th grade coach stepped in at just the right time. God is relentless in his love. He knows exactly what we need when we need it and how best to deliver it. Our challenge is to cultivate eyes to see where these gifts have come from, often through the most unexpected people. And then I wrote, many of us want to go straight to God for these gifts and skip people altogether, especially if people have caused us pain. I should probably get rid of the if. especially because people have caused us pain. And I'm like, and let's be honest, people can be difficult.
Yeah.
To say it lightly, people can be difficult. But God's design is to use people as his tangible representatives. He wants us to experience his love with skin on. And so I also wrote about how this foundational belief really helped me too, as I had to come to terms with what I could and couldn't give my own kids.
Yeah, definitely. That's
because
a common pain point when people go through this.
If I thought, as I'm learning this, obviously I've talked a lot about, I lack the gift of being enough. So where do I see my kids struggle? Interestingly, that's a struggle for them too. Yeah, surprise.
That was a zinger.
Now, if I would have thought that they're doomed forever because they don't have that gift, I'm like, that would be but this gives me so much faith because I'm like, God knew where I struggled.
Exactly.
He called me and put me in a position to be their father.
Yeah.
He knew where I struggled. He knew he's the ultimate parent. Like he knows what to give them. So.
And he knows exactly what ambassadors, what humans to send to us because he knows us so well.
Yeah. And
even in my story with Jeff dying, how much comfort did that bring me? It brought comfort for me as a mom and the mistakes I've made and the things I couldn't give to my kids. But then also it brought comfort to me to know that my kids could receive because remember one of the big reasons why I went down this path to find the compassion method was because my kids' diagnosis after a parent dies in early childhood development was really bad. So they pretty much said, it's going to be really bad. Learn how to deal with it. But the compassion method created a way that we didn't have to learn how to deal with it. We could receive it, even though they lost their dad. Other men came and stood in the gap for what Jeff was not able to give them because he wasn't here. So it's so redemptive, both for me as a mom, making my mistakes, not giving my kids what they needed, but also knowing that even though they lost their dad, they're able to receive everything that they needed to receive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really beautiful when you think about it.
Yeah.
And our job as parents, and really through the compassion method, is just help give them eyes to see, because we've talked about this. We are fighting biology a bit, because biologically, cellularly, we're looking towards mom and dad,
biological parents.
biological
Exactly.
mom and dad.
Yep, we are.
So,
but if we can receive the same things that our biological parents either were meant to give us or couldn't give us, we are receiving it, not on a biological level, but the same characteristics.
mm-hmm.
I've seen certain people that stood in the gap for Jeff that reminded me of Jeff. And it's been kind of cool, because I was like, oh, that person was a specific gift giver to represent Jeff, to be a tangible presence of God, of course, that's the end story, but of tangible presence for Jeff, for them to be able to receive that characteristic that will never be exactly him, because that's impossible, but very similar. And then he picked random people that I was like, but you know what, even if Jeff was alive, other people would have had to come in too.
Absolutely. Yeah, right.
So it's not, exactly.
Yeah. You know, and then here to me is where the huge discipleship component of one of the huge discipleship components of the compassion method is, and I wrote, here's why this matters so deeply. It empowers us to see God properly. It is well established in theological reflection and pastoral ministry that we as humans often view God through the lens of our experiences with our earthly parents. Both fatherhood and motherhood reflect aspects of God's perfect care. So the beef so many people have with God and the struggles that they have in their growing relationship with him are related back to, this lens. And this process, you've talked about, part of your passion and your work is to help people see God properly represented. Okay. So like for my kids, there's a ton of ways I couldn't properly represent God. And that skews how they view God. But man, if they can see that through another one of his ambassadors that did a lot better job in that area than me.
Yeah.
That helps them see God clearly.
Yes. That's what makes, when people are like, oh, I feel like this is against God or not honoring God. And I'm like, no, this is allowing us to actually be able to not only love God, but receive love from God. It's just, what a beautiful thing that he gave to us, that we would be able to receive everything he wanted us to receive, whether humans were able to give that to us or not. He was always providing for us. And I love that. And he did provide through humans. I mean, I meant more like your biological parents. When our parents couldn't give it to us, how he was just so extravagantly giving us what we needed. We just didn't have eyes to see it, and we didn't have a heart to receive it. But now that we can see it and now that we can receive it, we can love him so much more. And just as importantly, we can receive love from him so much more.
I shared with you just a little bit before the call about I saw I was on a conference call earlier today, and I saw a parallel between people wanting to go straight to God because people can be difficult.
Oh, yeah.
In business. And right now in the business climate, they want to go straight to AI. Mm-hmm. Businesses want to go to AI because people can be difficult.
Let's get rid of all these humans. We'll just do AI.
Yeah. And
that
I'm like,
good.
And it's so interestingly because, my simplest way to think about AI is like, think about what a calculator is really good at. And AI is that on steroids. Okay. So doing mathematical why do we not try to do complicated math in our head? Because for most of us, the calculator does it a lot better. There's a few rare exceptions out there. So think about AI as a calculator on complete steroids. The nuance and the working, all of the beauty that humanity brings is never going to be replaced, especially if you believe in what the Bible says. Like, we have a soul, a robot's never going to have a soul. It's never going to have a spirit, it's just.
Robots are not his crown jewel.
Robots are not his crown jewel, right? So like when I hear all these doomers about AI, I'm like, oh, that just does not square with my faith at all. Humans are always going to have, we're always going to be his ambassador. And we're that in the marketplace too, you know? So there's things that a human's going to do in the marketplace that is never going to be replaced by technology. And I know it's going to get a lot better, but every time I'm on somewhere and I'm talking to a chat bot, I'm just like, person, live person, live person, live person. They don't even have to speak my language. Just give me a live person, right?
Yeah.
This robot's an idiot. I know they're going to get better. I know they're getting better, and I'm not going to.
AI definitely has its purpose, but
absolutely.
If it removes our human connection, it removes our humanity. Like it will never be enough for us.
Right. No. And kind of my theory on that is, I think it's actually going to have. I think. Kind of my gut feeling is it's going to have the reverse effect, and it's going to help people drive them more towards human connection.
I love that.
Because people want to see something real.
Yeah.
So I think in this world of AI and being able to fake things and special effects and just all these things, people are going to be like, you know what? I just want to go see a live play. I want to see real people doing real people stuff, making mistakes and all. And, because now AI is actually trying to throw in mistakes so it looks more human, because people want to see, you know, like, it looks a little too perfect. You know, there's beauty in those mistakes. There's beauty in those things that aren't quite right, you know? So anyway.
Even when it's painful, there's still beauty.
Yeah. So I think we have time for one more. And the kind of the last objection I got, and this kind of came more through when we did the theological review. And I think it has to do with compassion. So the way I wrote about compassion, and it was a man that was reviewing it, I think, and I don't want to be like gender stereotyping things, but I can just tell you my experience as a man is that when I first encountered the compassion method, I realized that I had a very subconscious disdain. I didn't know it was there, but I had a disdain for even the word compassion. It sounded soft. It sounded lame. It sounded like, you know, not manly. It just was not the picture of masculinity. It was soft, like weak. And it was really, as I dove more into compassion, especially through scripture, that I was able to completely spin that around. Now, you've worked with a lot of men and women, but obviously you've ran into people that compassion.
Well, yeah, because people are looking at it so much more through like pity or sympathy, or just like no backbone, weak, dismissive, you know, where it's anything but those things. But if that's been our experience with what we thought was compassion, then of course we're going to have a perspective that's going to see it as less than, see it as powerless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And for me, I was thinking about, you know, the ultimate act of compassion. So, you know, like one of the things I wrote about was, I said, like, compassion is the most powerful force in the universe. Well, some people look at that and they're like, are you talking about like something from Star Wars? Like, I'm like, no, compassion is love. So if you say love is the most powerful force in the universe, everyone will be like, yeah, I suppose, you know, whether they really believe that or not, sounds very right.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
You know, God is love. So love is the most powerful force. I'm like, love and compassion are like the same thing. Like, we talk about how compassion is love in action. It's love with skin on, you know, those are all different things that we say. And so anyway, so that was just,
I think it is a really important clarification, because that is the fuel, the fuel source of the compassion method. And if you don't know what it is, or you don't like it because of your experiences or your perceptions of it, then we are going to not be able to, you know, it says Jesus was moved with compassion and healed all those that came to him. And the word he used for moved is almost an involuntary action that he couldn't even help himself. The force, using the word force, but the force of compassion was so strong that it would be almost like, and it sounds kind of gross, but they said like it's almost like a bowel movement where it would just come out. It would just be released because he was so moved. It would be released and he would heal. So I mean, if you think about that, that's a powerful force. So it wasn't just he said, "I love you." He was moved with compassion and healed all those that came to him.
Well, love felt like something.
Yeah.
And so compassion is like what love feels like.
Exactly. And compassion is the ability to be with ourselves and others in our pain, in their pain.
Here's what I wrote. I said, after meeting with Laura several times, I realized I had a very guarded, subconscious disdain for compassion. I felt it was weak, soft, categorized with things that didn't define a real man. I was horribly deceived. Shame was up to its old tricks. To break this deception, I needed to see compassion for both its loving kindness and its ruthless severity. And to see this clearly, I needed to look at the life of Jesus. No one has ever embodied compassion like Jesus. And the severity of it was, I think about the greatest act of compassion ever occurred on the cross. And in that moment, and leading up to that moment, and what I believe was happening in the Garden of Gethsemane is that Jesus was feeling the weight of every sin that had ever been committed and every sin that would ever be committed. He was feeling the weight of that. And ultimately, sin equals separation, and he was feeling the weight of the separation, unnecessarily, because obviously we feel that weight because we actually did it.
Yeah.
He
felt it
that
on our behalf.
Yeah. And
which was a form of compassion because he was with us in our sin in a felt experience.
Yeah. So then I was like seeing like compassion is like courageous and brave. Think of the courage and the bravery to face that kind of pain.
Yeah.
I see it like, I
see compassion as humility as well. It humbles us to feel our pain.
Oh, right.
And to be with others in their pain.
Yeah. So.
Strong. Forceful.
So weak would not be the way to categorize that.
That is definitely not.
Weak is not.
Pity is weak. Sympathy can be weak. Compassion is not weak.
Yeah. It's empowering. Like, say compassion isn't soft. It's a bull in the china shop of shame, charging into comfort. You call it fierce tenderness, connecting with others and yourself at a feeling level. Yeah,
and when Jesus talks about being with him in his sufferings, that is compassion as well. Mm-hmm. And if we don't know how to be with ourselves in our sufferings, how can we honor him and be with him in his sufferings?
Mm-hmm. Laura, today's call was kind of deep. So
it was. I know. I'm like, there's a couple of zingers in there. I hope there's everybody
some zingers in there. Go back and think about them for a little while.
Go back and listen and pause.
So I think how I'd like to leave this is that we obviously neither you nor I are, theologians, but as you have your questions, any listeners, as you have questions about how this connects to your faith, any concerns, feel free. We have a outlet there. You can ask questions and we can research and get back to you.
If you guys want to go back and reference those scriptures and see how they connect to the compassion method, but also to yourself. I think that's really important. Just like I needed my faith to be a felt experience and a relationship, not just a religion. We need our discovery and connection with the compassion method to do the same with Jesus. So being able to not look at it through triggered eyes, but look at it through our true self and be able to see what these aspects, these things mean to each of us.
Yep. And obviously when Above All Else comes out, we'll go into some of those things, or I'll go into some of those things in great detail as well. So
exciting.
Yeah, very good. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for this episode, and we look forward to next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.